welcome back to Policing TV, and I'm delighted to still have with me Louise Harrison, who is the Chief Fire Officer and Chief Executive for Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. Welcome back, Louise.
Thank you.
So in our first interview, we talked about your, frankly, astonishingly in places career with Merseyside Police and then into CNC, and just some fantastic jobs, difficult jobs you did in that time. But of course, it's obvious my first question is, we now find you as the Fire Chief, which is within the Blue Light partnerships, but actually still a big transition. I think we said at the start, you may be the first one at that senior level, I don't know, but it's certainly an achievement. So what led you from policing to now the current job, which I think, and congratulations, you've just done your first year in post. So you've a bit of reflections on your first year.
Yeah, it's been, oh my goodness, it's been a whirlwind of a year, but it is absolutely flown. And I love it. I think it's fair to say it's been tricky. It's been a roller coaster. It's been terrifying at times. For me, hopefully not for the staff, but for me, because I absolutely feel vulnerable every day because I haven't grown up through the sector and I'm still learning every day. But it's been fantastic. So I sort of retired from Merseyside while I was still on secondment across with Civil Nuclear Constabulary, did my 30. I'd always said I was going to work to a certain age. And then my contract completed with CNC. I wasn't sure I wanted to stay in policing, and that was no reflection on anything other than it's hard. It's really, really difficult. I think being on call, operating at that level as an ACC, because it was a national service, I was doing a huge amount of travelling, literally up and down the country from sort of Doonray, John O'Groats, all the way down to Dungeness, which is in Kent. And it takes its toll, doesn't it? And I think, my son was working at home still after sort of COVID, because I joined CNC as COVID began. So I'd had a couple of years of just that whole challenge of being gold COVID and everything else. But I sort of started again getting phone calls from, oh, you don't fancy doing this, do you? You don't fancy doing that? And I think because you've operated at a certain level, people automatically, those jobs without even looking just kind of are there, aren't they? And I know, Trevor, we had a number of conversations, didn't we, about what roles were open once you sort of leave sort of UK policing as such. And I got a couple of phone calls around working for the fire service in different services, and Buckinghamshire came up, and Buckinghamshire was close to my heart, I think, because I was brought up in and around this area. So I'm not as familiar with the north end of the county, but certainly the south end, the sort of Buckinghamshire, Berkshire area, was kind of where I grew up and spent many a wasted night as a young person, clubbing and drinking, all that kind of good stuff. So that was kind of what attracted it to me, and but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go frying pan fire, so straight into another sector, a sector that's clearly under a lot of scrutiny at the moment for not all the right reasons. And I thought, well, I came down, I got invited to come down and do a test a day here. And I had also applied for British Red Cross, actually, another job. And I just walked in, literally, first day here as a taster session, and just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the staff, the friendly environment, the warmth of people, the genuine commitment to want to do a really good job. And I remember ringing my husband, Mark, that night saying, oh dear, I think we might have a problem. I really like it. I really like it here. And was fortunate enough to be offered the job. I think the sector, certainly my authority here at the time, were just looking to move the service on, looking for change. We were on the back of a number of not great HMIC reports. And so my first week here, I was basically told from HMIC that we were going into special measures. So we were enhanced monitoring or engage. So this whole year has been a real challenge. Personally, it's been really difficult at times because I haven't had that 30 years of experience knowing who to pick the phone up to, having a network, knowing what some of the three-letter acronyms meant, not wanting to look stupid, all the kind of stuff that you worry about when you go into a new role, and particularly at this level. So it's been, from a personal level, that's been really tricky and it's been really hard. But I've had such a good team around me. We've got the NPCC equivalent, the NFCC, so a group of chiefs who have been really supportive, really welcoming, and I've loved it. It's been a really warm and welcoming transition from one sector into the other.
I can see that real challenge, because if you take on a more senior role in policing, you've got all that experience under you. You've probably been to every job or seen every job or heard about every job, and you can base on. So I can see that real personal challenge. And if you come in at a middle rank, you're surrounded by people, and it's not so stark. But as a CEO, chief fire officer, was that the biggest challenge for you in developing that kind of understanding of the job, the challenges, the issues that are within sort of the front end deliverers?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's really difficult. You've got no benchmark, so it's really hard to sense check. And a lot of it, for me anyway, has just almost been gut, intuition, a bit of experience from policing in terms of that works well. Definitely some leadership skills, I think, in terms of knowing what we needed to do from an organisational perspective. I won't proclaim at all to understand the technical side of firefighting. They amaze me every day with their technical knowledge and what they do, and just the positions they put themselves in. It's incredible. But I kind of almost accept I don't know that bit very well, but I've got people around me that do understand it really well. But what I do have from my previous sector, which I can bring, is an understanding of working with teams, how to get the best out of teams, making teams work well, understanding the challenges around, culture, finance, political pressure, everything that comes from at that level with policing is very similar to fire in a lot of respects, albeit it's not. The fire sector isn't as diverse in terms of the range of things that we have to manage, but at sort of that top level organisational, from that perspective, it's very similar in terms of the pressures that you feel.
And do you have an on-call role for operational incidents? So I appreciate it wouldn't be the more day-to-day incident, but if something very significant, and if you do, does that give you that kind of anxiety? Not that you can't command, because you've had some very significant command roles, and actually, I know your background around firearms command, and you would have dealt with lots of very risky and high threat situations. But does the technical knowledge or the having not experienced it, does that cause you some slight worries? Is that a challenge?
Oh, it makes my palms sweat just talking about it. So I went on our rota last week for the first time because I wanted to. I mean, I'd done magic courses in policing, but I wanted to do fire incident command to a level which, I believed in the service believes will make me competent enough to turn up if I have to. Yes. That doesn't mean I'm going to turn up at an incident anytime soon and manage a fire incident. I know my limitations and I want to keep people safe ultimately. But certainly in terms of being able to manage those structures, those processes, whether it's SCGs, working with NRF, working with other partners, yes. Managing the front-facing bit of the service while, your more experienced incident commanders are dealing with the job itself. Yes. But that's taken a year to sort of get to that point. I've been really lucky. I've used a couple of adepts in the fire service and chiefs just to do some mentoring, just so I can understand the basics of fire. And obviously trying to go out and watch some training when I can and get round to the stations and just understand some of the challenges that firefighters have, from a day-to-day perspective, and also just understanding the impact that it has on them, because there was a reason that I didn't go into traffic as a police officer, because it's just a scene of death and destruction and mayhem, isn't it? And these guys and gals here are dealing with that on, unfortunately, a really regular basis. So just understanding the pressures and the ask that we put on them has been really important for me. The technical stuff, I kind of accept I'm never going to know as well as I did from policing, but that's why you have good people around you, isn't it?
Yes. I think it also demonstrates the strength of where UK policing, as far as I'm concerned, leads the world in that partnership working. I think you mentioned the magic course. So,
Yeah.
we were both junior in service at a point where actually we didn't work in that level of partnership at any level. And
No.
so it's to the credit. You touched on the welfare side. How equipped is the fire service in terms of welfare? I know policing's looking really hard at welfare of its staff. How well equipped are the fire brigade? Because you mentioned they're exactly right. They will deal with a very high number of the more
Yeah.
high-end traumatic incidents.
Yeah. So the firefighters charity, and I don't think we have anything equivalent in policing. I don't think we did, but they are an amazing charity that provide a huge amount of service away from your service to support firefighters and their families. They are a fantastic asset, and each fire service raises a lot of money for them every year, quite rightly. And our service does, and all sectors have access, importantly, to that welfare provision. Is it enough? It's never going to be enough, is it?
No.
Really, let's be honest. Whatever role you do, having access to mental health support, occupational health, everybody is struggling, aren't they? So I'm not going to say that we've got it nailed in this sector, because we haven't. We do have a good offer, and we have a welfare officer here in Buckinghamshire, and the staff love him. I wish I just had 3 of him, though, because there's so much to do, isn't there? And it's not just the trauma or pressures of the job. It's the day-to-day pressures, isn't it, of just family life, work life, finance, all that kind of stuff as well. There's definitely the more that needs to be done with emergency workers, I think, across all services, in terms of being able to access that support when it's required. We've kind of got to protect the protectors, haven't we?
Yes, I say things seem to have moved on a long way, but I agree with your point. Actually, it's probably never going to be enough in place.
No.
What do you see the challenges, I suppose, for your current job, but for the fire service? You alluded to some things happening nationally, which we're not going to dive into, but they exist. So, what do you see the challenges for you, Buckinghamshire, but the wider service over the next kind of 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think the sector is. I think the sector is where policing was a number of years ago, in terms of that level of scrutiny that is coming down the tube. So, the amazing thing is that the public just love this sector. They love the fire sector. You never, very ever rarely see criticism of firefighters, the work they do, the jobs they do, and it's a really wonderful position to be in. And I sometimes am surprised that as a sector we don't talk more about the good stuff that we do, because they really undersell what they do and the heroism and courage that they display. And it's kind of, they kind of always play it down, they hide their light under a bushel a bit. And I think there's a real need to be able to talk and demonstrate and let the public know just what they do, because I think that level of scrutiny is going to increase. So I think as a sector, it's always really important to be mindful that people are watching and looking. You know, and there's a number of services, mine included, which has had the scrutiny in the gaze of HMIC, quite rightly. But that's not going to go away. And I think as a sector, we've just got to be, unlike policing, that has been used to having peel inspections, thematics. I think the fire sector hasn't always had that. It's still a relative, I say new, probably 5 years, but the sector's got to get smart with it. And, you know, push the stuff that is brilliant more, be more comfortable about being more public facing, if you like, but also the bits that need smartening up and tidying up, we've also got to tackle and address.
And what's been, so that was looking forward. Looking back now, you've had your first anniversary. So
Yeah.
what's been your highlight for the first 12 months having made the transition over? And I think what I'm going to ask you to do is exclude the fire dogs, just for now, because they probably are the highlight. But what would be your other highlight for the 12 months you've been in?
Do you know what? There's so many little things, like, you know, I've managed to get round and meet loads of staff. It's been fascinating just listening and talking to them and getting to understand the sector. A year in, we've just changed our governance structures. So, and I'm mindful that we are still in engage with HMIC, but we are making such good progress. And I think that's been a real highlight, is watching everyone pull together, really focused on improving the areas that we know we need to improve, but not letting their chins go down. So this service, and I would say this, wouldn't I? But it's a fantastic service. We've got such good people here. And the change over the last 12 months, to see people who felt, you know, a little bit kicked by the really bad report that the service got, to now seeing them thriving and really welcoming the challenge and really wanting to go above and beyond where we need to be from an HMIC perspective, but also importantly, obviously, for serving the communities and being a brilliant service, has just been amazing. We've done so much work, and, you know, we've changed our vision and values. Our social media presence is fantastic. We've got a great team of comms now who just do an amazing job talking about and demonstrating and showing, you know, the kind of people that we have in this service, and the work that we do. So just that development over the year, I can really see the changes already, and I suppose that's the highlight for me. It's a personal thing, because it feels like, even though I didn't know what I was doing, sometimes it feels like I've pushed us in the right direction. But actually, people, from what I can see, are sort of thriving, and that's really, really good to see.
That's really positive. So I'm guessing you'd recommend the move if other people had the opportunity. So if you would recommend it, have you got any top tips if someone was considering making that transition from policing across to not just the fire service, but obviously the fire service, but other agencies at that senior level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, I would highly recommend it, and you'll be aware that I think there's another female senior police officer that now's also moved over to Northamptonshire, Nikki Watson. And, you know, I've had a chance to speak to her. She absolutely loves it as well, same as me, has felt really welcomed, and people have been really receptive to somebody from a different sector coming in. So it's been really refreshing and really, really good. Yeah, I think, and I know we talked about this a little bit before, Trevor, didn't we? But I think when you've worked in a sector such as policing for so long, you probably don't recognise and reflect enough what you do know and what you can do and what you've learned and what skills you can bring over. Now, I always thought I was okay at doing the team building bit and working with partners, but actually when you do come across, I think it gives you the time to reflect on just what you have learnt from a career in another service or another sector somewhere else. And, you know, you get a chance to bring an influence and bring change and a fresh perspective. Whatever sector you're leaving and whatever sector you're going into, a fresh perspective is always a really good thing, isn't it? You know, there's always an opportunity, going back full circle, to learn something different, to meet new people, to continue to learn and develop, and actually, share some of what you've learned on your previous journey with new people in a new organisation. So, yeah, I would highly recommend it, and it is a great sector to work in.
Well, that's a really positive note to bring this section to a close. I want to just say congratulations. I'm glad I spoke
Thank
to you
you.
at your first anniversary, because I've watched with interest, because we spoke just as you were taking on the role,
Yeah.
And I've watched with interest, and I'm going to watch with interest your progress you make, and perhaps I'll come back again in a little while when even more progress has been made and see where you are. But Louise, congratulations. Honestly, it's
Thank
a
you.
big move. I know we spoke at the time and you gave it a lot of thought. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. There's some very inspirational words there for people who may be looking for a different change, and you're leading the way. And Nikki Watson's also out there making that same journey. So, Louise, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are, so I do really appreciate your time in talking to us. So,
It's a pleasure, Trevor. Thank you.
Good. So, thank you very much, and best wishes for what's next coming over the hill for the Buckinghamshire Fire Service.
Thank you.